All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're getting into the nuts and bolts of commercial lending. We're going to break down a skill that's absolutely fundamental to being a good banker: how to properly analyze business risk.
You know, at the end of the day, it really all comes down to this one question. It's the challenge every commercial banker faces, every single day. And the answer isn't about having a crystal ball or just a lucky gut feeling. Not at all. It's about having a disciplined way to think things through.
Exactly. The best, most seasoned lenders, they don't guess. They lean on a proven, systematic way of looking at a deal from all sides. This gives them the structure they need to make smart, solid credit decisions that they can stand behind.
And that system, well, it's famously known as the 5 C's of credit. I'm sure you've heard of them. These 5 principles, they're really the timeless foundation for sizing up any loan. There's a reason they've been around forever. They just work. So let's break them down. First up, character. This is all about the people running the show. You're looking at their track record, their reputation, sure, but what you're really asking is a very simple question. Do I trust that they want to pay this loan back? It's about their willingness. I mean, think about it. If they have a history of paying their suppliers late, what makes you think the bank will be any different? Judging character is about judging that fundamental desire to make good on their word. It's the bedrock of the whole relationship.
Okay, next is capacity. So if character is their willingness to pay, capacity is their ability to pay. This is where we get into the numbers. And we're not just talking about the profit number on an income statement. No, we're digging into the actual cash that flows in and out of the business. After they pay their rent, their staff, and all their other bills, is there actually enough cash left over to make our loan payment? This is where you find the hard proof that the business can handle the debt.
Our third C is capital. The easiest way to think about this is skin in the game. How much of their own money have they put on the line? A big investment from the owner shows us they're committed, and it gives the business a really important financial cushion. So if sales take an unexpected hit, this is the money they'll dip into to keep things running and make their loan payments instead of just folding at the first sign of trouble.
Which brings us to collateral. These are the assets, like property or equipment, that are pledged to us if the borrower can't pay. But, and this is the golden rule of lending, collateral is always your plan B, never your plan A. We are never ever making a loan hoping we get to take the keys to the factory. It's a safety net for sure. It lowers our risk, but it is no substitute for the business having the cash flow to pay us back in the first place.
And finally, we have conditions. This C is where we have to zoom out and look at the big picture. You can have a perfectly healthy business that's sailing straight into a storm it can't control. Is a huge new competitor about to open up across the street? Are interest rates going up, which might make customers stop spending? We have to look at the whole economic and industry environment to really understand the challenges or advantages the companies face.
So this is the classic question, right? Which of these 5 is the most important one? Honestly, you need all 5 for the full picture. But if you ask a bunch of experienced lenders, a lot of them will tell you it's character. And why is that? Because a borrower with integrity will move heaven and earth to pay you back even when conditions get really, really tough. Everything else is built on that foundation of trust.
Okay, so we've got the 5 C's as our high-level framework. Now we're going to drill down a bit deeper. To really get what makes a company tick, you have to split risk into 2 different buckets: the stuff they can't control and the stuff they can.
And here are those 2 buckets. On one side, you've got industry risk. These are all the external things: the economy, new regulations, things that are pretty much out of the company's hands. But on the other side, you've got business risk. And these are the internal factors, things like strategy, operations, execution, that are very much in management's control. And this, right here, is where we can really start our deep dive analysis.
So to really pick apart a company's internal risks, we break it down into these 7 areas. You can think of this as a roadmap. We're following the company's entire process, from its basic DNA and who's in charge, to how it gets its supplies, makes its product, and then actually gets it into a customer's hands. Looking at each of these steps gives you an amazingly clear picture of where they're strong and where they might be weak.
So how do we actually do this? Well, we can use a simple grid like this one. Let's take business characteristics. You look at a factor like experience. Is this a brand new company with very little track record? Well, that's going to be high risk. Or have they been around for decades and successfully weathered a few recessions? Okay, now you're looking at low risk. It's a structured way to rate these factors.
Let's look at another huge one: control and management.
The quality of the leadership team is just critical. For example, does the company have an independent board bringing in outside expertise? Or is it just an internal echo chamber where everyone agrees with the boss? Is there a solid bench of managers ready to step up, or does the whole company grind to a halt if the founder gets sick? You see how asking these questions tells you a ton about the company's stability.
You know, everything we've talked about really comes back to this one idea. This deep dive into business risk, it's not just some box-ticking exercise. It is the absolute foundation for everything else. It's how you understand the financials, how you project cash flow, and ultimately, how you make a smart, informed decision on whether or not to lend.
And that really leaves us with one final thought. It's so easy to look at all these frameworks and tables and see them as just a checklist to get through. But the very best bankers, they know this analysis is something more. It's the start of a real conversation, one that lets you understand what truly makes a business tick. I'm your host, and this has been The Explainer.